Hi everyone, it's me, Jessica lwhor, and we're back with another JESS Talk. And today we are going to be talking about body positivity and the body positivity journey. And I just want to give a little trigger warning for anybody that is going through any kind of eating disorders or any type of body dysmorphia. We're going to be talking about those types of things in this episode. But before we get into it, and I tell you a little bit about my journey, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, hit the bell for notifications as usual, and that you are listening and streaming this podcast, JESS Talks, on Apple Music, Spotify, and all platforms. Okay, body positivity, body dysmorphia, body image, let's get into it.
Attention lwhor, attention lwhor, attention lwhor, attention. Here I am walking down the street, seeing all the boys trying to take a peek. Shorts pulled up and chest out right. Come on, boys, just take a bite. Look but don't touch, spin it round and round.
Okay, body positivity. Like I said, I give the trigger warning already because I want to be real with this journey and what this is. I think a lot of people in life go through ebbs and flows of what they don't like about themselves, what they do like about themselves, what they're willing to do to change things, and where their journey kind of starts, or where these mindsets come from. A lot of it is the surrounding areas, like what influences do you have? Is it your family? Is it your friends? Is it, are you bullied in school for looking a different way or for acting a different way? Is it something that you see, whether it be models or porn even, or like, how are you looking at the people around you and how is that being reflected on yourself? So to give you some backstory and looking back at it, like I'm not affected in the same way, but when I was growing up, my nickname was Chunk from my sisters, from my family. Like I was called Fat Boy and Chunk a lot. And at the time I didn't really read into it, but I think that now that I'm an adult and I'm looking back, those are things that probably negatively affected my perception of myself. And it got to the point where like even Chunk as a nickname, I put on my class ring in high school. I still have that class ring. I think it's actually in my purse. I actually want to pull it out and see if that's accurate. Is my purse over there? Remember I found it when I did that episode? Almost. I found it when I was, here it is. Yeah, so my classroom ring, I even have Chunk listed on this. So this is how old that nickname is. And when I think about it now as an adult, these are things that I probably shouldn't have allowed, or even my parents shouldn't have allowed as nicknames because of how they affected me. And I even think of the nicknames that I gave my sisters. And yes, siblings treat each other different, but I think small moments like that do ultimately affect how you're going to perceive yourself. So growing up, I was Fat Boy, I was Chunk, and that was my nickname. And I think that translated a lot to how I showed up in high school, because when I remember being in high school, and I was not a very active person up until probably the last couple of years, being in sports or doing activities like that, even if I would do them with friends, it wasn't my go-to. I didn't like working out. I didn't like really going into the mountains and hiking. I didn't really like being an active human. And so I think that perception of like, well, I don't have to do anything. I'm just okay. I'm okay with the way that I look in high school changed a lot because I had really negative experiences. I remember being in musicals, and there was one particular music once on this island where all of the boy dancers, which I was a boy dancer at the time, had to wear like little loincloth things with compression shorts, like swimwear kind of thing. And everyone got their bodies oiled up for once on this island. But I was the only one that nobody would help oil up in school. Nobody would. My best friend Jamie, who's still my best friend from high school, was the only one that stepped forward because I was overweight. Well, I wasn't really overweight. I wasn't fit. I didn't look fit. When I look back, I was never overweight. I was chubbier, had extra fat. Growing into your body, exactly. It's high school, puberty, all kinds of things kind of take effect there. But that really impacted me. It's something I'll never forget. Same thing with one of the choreographers that was teaching dance, and I was eating McDonald's French fries at rehearsal, And they literally said,
do you really think that you should be eating that?
there are just so many moments that I remember being stuck in my head, or even now, I'm a foodie and I've always been a foodie. I really do love food, but I went through a long period, many years of having really awful relationships with food. It got to the point where I would never eat in front of people because I didn't want them to see how much I was eating or how I was eating. And the way that I would diet or the way that I would talk about myself was really disgusting. And a lot of people don't realize the journey that I've taken to get to where I am. And I don't feel like they need the explanation of it either. And I don't think anybody should explain, it's really quick to judge and say, oh, you're just a fit Instagram model, or you have abs, so you don't know anything about that. And maybe that is true in some cases where you have somebody that's always been muscly and always fit, but there are a lot of people that have gone through different struggles to get to where they are, and I think it's all about how they present themselves after they get there. But in high school, those are some things that really stuck out to me. Not only was it with my family, I wore baggier clothes. I always made sure not to show off parts of my body, but it was even more than just my body. It came from, psoriasis contributed to that at one point. I got to a place where I hated my eye color, my natural eye color, so much that I refused to take out my colored contacts. And I ended up wearing colored prescription contacts, I remember, for like 4.5 months straight, because I did not want to take them out or be seen because I hated my eyes that much. And it made me blind for a minute. Like, I have vision, pretty great vision now, but because I slept in them night after night after night after night. And it got to the point where even this, didn't take them out. Smallest amounts of light would affect me, and I had to get help to guide it. I always had to wear sunglasses. There was a point where I hated my smile. I hated my teeth, where I would sleep in my whitening strips, which is really bad. It's horrible. I remember working summer jobs, and I would plastic wrap my body regularly for hours on end to sweat and to corset and to bind. I would wear girdles and go tighter. I would do plastic wrap. I would do duct tape. And this was before I did drag. I just did these things because I wanted to do every trick in the book to lose weight, every weird method, and different diets, different plans. At one point, I thought a chip diet was going to work. So every time I got hungry, I would have a couple of chips to subside it and then continue with my day. I've passed out from not eating. I've gone through a lot of pieces where my relationship with food was really toxic, and it was really destructive. So where did it get to? My relationship with food progressed, and then I ended up doing just drinking. So I would be not eating, but I was drinking a lot of alcohol. And so that was obviously not a really great focus. Or if I did eat, I wouldn't eat around people. I would eat on my own time, and then I would binge eat. I'd eat a bunch of food, and then I'd feel terrible about it. Well, a lot of these bad perceptions of yourself escalate and escalate and escalate, and that's pretty much how eating disorders continuously get a little bit worse every single time. People would make comments and say, oh, you're beautiful or you're skinny, and that would trigger me to do more of that. And I don't think people realize that when you go and tell somebody, oh, they're skinny, it's no different than telling somebody that they're fat. You really shouldn't just comment on anybody's body. You should eat a cheeseburger joke in drag. You really just shouldn't make comments like that, because you don't know how internally that person is being affected by that. I mean, eating disorders are in so much different range. You look at somebody that is a fat person, and it is okay to say a fat person without it being a negative context. People are all different shapes and sizes. But that fat person may be significantly more active and also eat way better than the tiny person that doesn't exercise and is starving themselves. And so you really just don't know And like we said in the psoriasis episode, just don't comment on people's appearance or weight. It's just none of your business, and you don't know what you're going to say to trigger. Now, if I have a best friend or a close comrade, somebody that I can talk to, and I notice that they're not healthy, and healthy to me is defined as in like if I notice red flags about somebody's eating patterns that I've experienced or that I did to myself, I might, in a very tactful way, ask how they're doing because it's out of concern. But I would never go up to someone random. The people are very bold to judge people that choose to eat more or less or anything in between, or assume that someone is not healthy because of the size that they are. And I don't think that they're related in the same. I think that sometimes, they can be coincided, but even when doctors, their first response to larger individuals is, oh, well, we're going to put you on a diet and exercise. And sometimes that's not the response or the answer. Like, that's not the key. That's just not it. People are so quick to say that because, in the U.S., that's, we're so quick to supersize everything and make sure everybody eats whatever they want. But they're also the first ones to judge people for eating whatever they want. And so, moving into that, my eating disorders got really bad. I was bulimic. I was anorexic. I lived off of a liquid diet. I started taking copious amounts of weight loss pills to the point where I was unable to write in classes in college because I was shaking so much from being malnourished. And then once you get to a point, you binge, and then you hate yourself for binging it. It got really, really scary. I took laxatives. I used to bind my body. And it got to a place where I wasn't even hiding it. That's when it got really scary. When I wasn't hiding it, I was doing it in front of people. And I would have my best friend Jamie or people around me try to influence it. But I can tell you right now, you cannot fight the mindset of an individual that has no desire to affect change on themselves. As hard as that is, no matter how many people would come to me and remind me I was beautiful or skinny or say, hey, what you're doing is not okay, it did not matter to me because in my head, it was okay. I was looking better. I was looking thinner. I needed to lose 3 more pounds. I think my lowest weight ended up being like 108 pounds when I was in college, which is very, it's probably 35 pounds underweight. I'm supposed to be 140. That's my normal height weight comparison, 140, or 135, something like that. But it doesn't matter. See, in my head, it doesn't even matter. I don't weigh myself anymore. I don't look at scales. When people ask me my weight, I have no idea. When I go to the doctor, I specifically ask them not to tell me. I do not step on scales whatsoever. Never tempted myself anymore. And that's been for several years because all of those things that I wasn't hiding anymore, binge drinking, laxatives, throwing up in front of people, it got so scary that I almost ended my life. And that was one of the biggest triggers, is that I felt unlovable in the bedroom with people. I wasn't able to date. And I give props to a lot of the people that I tried to date when I was going through all of this, because I can't imagine now being on the other end of that partnership where I wanted to help and I wanted to reinforce my partner that they were wonderful and sexy and beautiful and hot and perfect just the way they are, but I couldn't believe it, and it was toxic to the relationships. And I look back and that was a huge factor about my insecurities and having to be shit-faced in order to be intimate with somebody to get over my body issues, or pitch black dark, you can't see me, or don't touch me at certain times. And I can't imagine receiving that as a partner. And so I recognized a lot of those things, but it progressed. It got to a point where it was a very dark place. I didn't want to live anymore. And thankfully, I'm here because I'm here. And I had people around me that wouldn't allow that. And I had a friend, Crystal, who's one of my good Judies, or Remy D. She's a drag queen, professional wrestler. We've worked together for many years. And she kind of gave me tough love at the time when I was almost in a weird way looking for pity because I had almost taken my life and I was in that place. She was one of the only ones that didn't give it to me. And part of me was really unhappy because that's not what I wanted. I wanted my pity party. I wanted to feel sad. I wanted to feel depressed. I wanted to hold on to everything negative and tell people the negative things because then it made me feel even more sorry for myself, like it was worth ending it. I couldn't describe it. It wasn't healthy. And she was one of the only ones, probably the only one at that time that pretty much said, you've been going through this for a long time. You need to make a choice. And I'm not talking about choices of ending your life. She's like, you need to make a choice of, are you going to let this control you every day? Or are you going to take control of what's going on? You need to make the choice. And I tried to be all weepy about it. And she's like, no, none of that. It was really hard to hear on the phone. And it was also a slap in the face. And from that moment, I started little challenges. I think I did a journey of like 160 something days. And I can even look back where I would post and find memes, word memes that related to how I was feeling in that moment. And I would be like, day so-and-so, day number whatever. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I want to put out into the world. And I feel like when you put things out into the world, there's a little bit of accountability because other people are seeing what you're doing and how you're trying to get better. So I started doing that even on days when I didn't. I started doing mirror work before I knew what mirror work was, where I would force myself to stare at my body for 30 seconds to a minute naked. And I didn't say positive things at the time, but I would just do it. And I hated looking at myself. I hated mirrors. I hated pictures of myself. I hated looking at myself. I would write words of affirmation on the glass of the mirrors in the bathrooms. I did that for years. Every day I would take the time to stare at myself. And then it turned from 30 seconds of staring at myself to a minute and a half. And months later and years later, it would get to a place where I could stare at myself for an hour. And then I would take time in that time to compliment my body and say things, even if I didn't believe it. I would say, you're beautiful. Your skin looks great. I love your smile. You are sexy. You're hot. And I did it to myself, even if I didn't believe it, until I got to the place where I started to believe it. And believe that I was a beautiful human that deserved to be loved and deserved to be loved for exactly how I was. And then it transferred into my social life. People would give me a compliment. And before I would say, that's not true, but thank you. Or that's false, but thank you. Or I don't believe that, but thank you. And instead I just would say, thank you. Leave it at that. Or I think so too. Thank you. Or I really appreciate that. Thank you. Trying to change the way that you speak about yourself. And I call it out with my friend groups because it triggers me a lot. When my sisters, my actual sisters, people around me, my friends, anybody around me, and they make a comment about themselves or like, I can't wear that. Like, I've gained weight. I can't wear that. And I'm like, well, you can. We could look at a different size and we can find something that fits your body. Like, or, oh, I don't like showing my arms. And I say, and that's totally fine. If you don't want to show your arms, it's great. But I want you to know your arms are great. Your arms are beautiful just the way they are. I think that it was hard when I was starting my fitness journey because during COVID, I feel like a lot of individuals did gain weight and they were, finding ways to compensate for the time that they didn't have to go to work or to entertain or whatever it was, and myself included. And the reason that I made a choice to start my fitness journey wasn't because I was unhappy with the way that I looked. It was because I wanted to make sure that when COVID ended or we got out of it, that I was able to have the stamina to continue doing the work that I wanted to do. And I personally wasn't okay that I got winded going up a flight of stairs, or I got winded putting on my pads, or I got winded doing a ballad walking around, or I was winded wearing a mask. I personally didn't like that, and I needed to make those changes. But my compromise was that food was never off the table for me. I think that's what mindfulness came into play. Mindfulness with food and my relationship with food changed a lot. I mean, my actions changed a lot. I started doing that mirror work. I started talking positively about myself in conversation, even alone. I still to this day remind myself and force myself to look at myself naked in the mirror regularly. I avoid the weight loss aisle, the weight aisle. I just don't go in that aisle anymore. It's a trigger for me. I don't go on scales. I listen to my body a little bit more, but my being active with dance classes, with going to the gym, with lifting weights and whatnot was never because I had a goal to look a certain way. It's because I felt better going. Everyone's like, well, what are your body goals? What are your body goals? My body goals don't exist. My body goals are to be active for a minimum of 15 minutes a day. That is my body goal. And if I want to go longer than that, wonderful. But in turn, I eat what I want and as much of that I would want. I don't binge anymore, which is really great. If I eat a lot of food, it's because I want to eat a lot of food. It's not because I feel like I starved myself. I try to introduce snacking into my life with having a bowl present like at the front of my kitchen so I can grab a granola bar, a whole, yeah. I don't look at food as a cheat day anymore. I don't look at food as a reward anymore. There would be times that I would have to be like, well, thank God I worked out for 3 hours and I did this. Now I'm allowed to eat. This is my reward. Food is when I want it, no matter how much I want of it. And until a doctor medically says like, hey, be cautious about your salt intake or your cholesterol is high or something like that, I'm going to continue to eat what I want. I'm very thankful that I guess I'm more of a salty than a sweet person because I don't ingest a lot of sugar. Like sugar's not in my diet a lot. And when it is, it's in small amounts. But I think an overeating of anything like all chips or something like that isn't great. Or like all fast food isn't great. But I don't think cutting it out for the sake of me not enjoying the way that I look is healthy. And in moderation, in mindfulness. And some days, even if I'm stoned and I want to eat a bunch of shit, let me eat a bunch of shit. Just as much as I can say, you know what, I'd actually prefer this salad over this cheeseburger. And I'm making that choice not because I need the diet, not because I don't have to, because that actually probably is better for me and I like them both equally. So I'm just going to make this choice. My relationship with food is completely different than what it was. And I think that it has positively impacted myself and my relationships with my friends and with my partners that I've had. I think we create up front, that's my biggest red flag. I tell any person that I date or my partner is that if you ever tell me what I can or cannot eat or question why I'm eating so much or why I choose to eat at any time of the day, whether it be 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever I want to eat, we are done. I don't give it the exception. And I will not do the same for you until, like I said, it's a medical thing. Like it's genuinely a way to make sure that you are living your best life.
Do you ever catch yourself like getting back into bad habits?
Yeah. There are times, I don't think that eating disorders ever go away. It's the same thing with depression and anything that's kind of a mental disease. I don't think they ever go away. You find ways to manage those instances and how long you're going to let them affect you. And at times, I'm just blunt, even with the person that I'm with, or I have a really good friend, Emma, where I'll message her and say, I feel like I need to punish myself because I chose not to do this, and now I don't feel like I deserve to eat. And I need to be reminded that is not, they don't coincide. They're not the same. I catch myself in bad habits a lot. I don't allow myself to talk negatively about myself anymore. But when I get into those slumps, I've changed in a way that I can catch it quicker and I know how to get out of it. And I think it's really important to recognize that. So I feel like I'm at my healthiest mentally and physically. And was I ever, I've changed so much in 10 years of who I am and how I perceive my body and other bodies and how I perceive other people, because that's also part of it. You can't, even in your mind, say, well, that person's really, really gross and fat and ugly and stupid. Even when you're talking about Trump and people that are awful people, using their weight or something physical about them,
Like their nose or
whatever it is,
anything.
doesn't make it any better. It makes you feel like it's okay because they're a bad person. And I would rather tell them that they're a bad person for logical reasons than when somebody goes on my social media like, oh, you're just an ugly, stupid, diseased, skin, fat, whatever. Like, to me, that doesn't even matter. It's such an uneducated response, because that means that if you feel it's okay to say that about that terrible person, you're still okay with saying it about other people. And the idea that you're okay with it's not okay. I think that you can have observations, but to use it as a tactic to knock someone down and to do a little jab, I don't think is appropriate. Unless you're doing a roast, like a Comedy Central roast, everything's free game at that point. Everything is fucking free game at that point. That is my only exception. If you sign up for a roast, or if you're in a roast, you're getting roasted on your physical appearance and every traumatic thing that happened in your life, but you should know that that's part of it. And I think that's kind of why I like roast, is like, it's a weird safe space to be a little bit mean in that way without it being mean. And maybe other people think differently, but I really like roast for that reason. Like, yeah, call them fat and ugly and stupid in a roast in a clever way, because it's always in a clever way, and leave it at that. Like, we get it. Okay, move on. But it's just different now. I'm really happy where I'm at. I'm really proud of where I'm at, and I hope that maybe my story, my experience, that I've never really gotten to talk about body positivity, changes. And if you're somebody that's going through anything that I described, or in any capacity, body dysmorphia, eating disorders, I truly encourage you to take the smallest steps to take hold of your life, because I feel like I missed out on a lot of years of hating myself when I could have spent them finding the path of loving myself. And surround yourself with people, your mindset about how to healthily navigate that. And if you're in a position where you can't take control of that, please reach out to others and find a way that you can take control of that. I'm very fortunate to have been able to do a lot of it in my own work, in my own time, but I spent years doing it. And I think that with help and with guidance, I could have gotten it a little bit sooner. I really appreciate you all watching this and listening to this JESS Talk. And I just want to remind you that you're beautiful. You are beautiful in the skin that you are in. And you have to remind yourself that. You have to remind people around you that you are. And if you have any questions further on this JESS Talk, you can comment down below. Otherwise, tell me what things you'd like to see for future JESS Talks. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye.
Attention, lwhor.